Right, so I know many of you guys are waiting for the new base iPad to launch, and we finally have some evidence that we should see this in spring 2025. Essentially, a source who tracks Apple's upcoming software updates says he's found evidence that we should see the iPad 11 launch in spring with iOS 18.3 pre-installed. Now, usually 0.3 updates launch around late Jan or early February, so of course it makes sense it will come with this update pre-installed and it will launch around spring. Now, this is not the first time we're hearing about a spring release, and now let's turn some old rumors from Mark Gurman, because he told us we should see new entry-level iPads in plural, with him then giving us the code names J481 and J482. Now, what does this mean, guys? Well, the pretty boring possibility is that this could be the Wi-Fi and cellular version, but usually we don't get separate code names for such minute differences. But Gurman also fails to explain what this could mean, and so we're left to speculate, guys. The first possibility is maybe a new size option. I mean, I would not be against a 12.9-inch base iPad. That would be pretty awesome for those who want the big screen experience without the high price tag, because that would be around $500. But that I don't see happening, because it could potentially cannibalize the 11-inch iPad Air, and of course Apple wants to upsell you, and also there's already too many iPads as is. And so the second possibility that I think is much more likely is that Apple's giving us two versions of the iPad 11. One with Apple Intelligence and one without. You see, Gurman has told us the base iPad's going to support Apple Intelligence, and so this likely means the A17 at the very least is coming to the base iPad, but that sounds a little too good to be true, because remember the iPad mini that Apple just launched that's $150 more has the A17 Pro, and so for the base iPads to have the same chipset and also be much cheaper would make the iPad mini horrible value. And so I reckon the $349 iPad 10 we have today is going to be replaced by an A16 iPad 11, one that does not support Apple Intelligence, but will still be a decent spec upgrade over the A14 in the iPad 10. Then maybe for $399 or $429, we get the A17 or A18 version of the iPad 11 that has 8 gigs of RAM compared to 6, and also most importantly has Apple Intelligence support. I know it still would be weird that the more expensive iPad mini will not have a much superior chipset, but maybe the mini also gets an update next year to a newer chipset, considering the A17 Pro really is not in circulation anymore and is based on the inferior TSMC N3B process, and so maybe next year the base iPad gets the A18 and the iPad mini gets the A18 Pro. If that doesn't happen though, I can see the base iPad getting a rebranded base A17, just so the mini is still technically a superior product with its A17 Pro. Yes, this is all just marketing waffle, but it does kind of make sense. At the end of the day though, I just don't see Apple giving us the power of the A17 or even the A18 for $349. Apple's not that generous, guys. I think similar to what we saw with AirPods 4, where there's a non-ANC version and an ANC version, we get two versions of the iPad 11. And also remember, when the iPad 10 originally released at a higher price, the iPad 10 stuck around for $329, and so this would not be the first time they split the base iPad into two models. I know it's weird, but we all know that Apple cares a lot about Apple Intelligence, and they also care about juicy profit margins, and so I could see this happening, though eventually the higher end model with the A17 or the A18 is going to come down to $349, just like the iPad 10 went from $449 to $349. Now you may be asking, is the chipset the only thing that sets us apart from the iPad 10? Well, mostly yes, but based on what we've seen with recent iPad releases, we can expect a few other smaller changes. For one, there'll be some connectivity improvements that Apple's going to make a big fuss about, like Wi-Fi 6E, even though most don't have Wi-Fi 6E routers in the first place, but expect that alongside Bluetooth 5.3 support. The next thing I'm also kind of curious about is Apple Pencil Pro support. You see, when the iPad 10 originally launched, Apple kind of led us to believe it could not support the regular Apple Pencil 2 because it needed a charging strip where the landscape camera was, and so we had to settle for the first gen Pencil and its horrific charging methods. That dongle still gives me nightmares. But thankfully, they then gave us the much superior USB-C pencil that attaches on the iPad like every other pencil. Now though, with the new iPad Air Pro, Apple has restructured the magnetic strip so that of course you get wireless charging whilst also getting the landscape camera, and so there is a possibility we see Apple Pencil Pro with the iPad 11. Yes, it's kinda overkill having this pencil that has bloody gyroscope supports and all kinds of cool tech on a display that's likely still not going to be laminated, but I think just for some continuity in the range, it would be nice if all all iPads just supported the same pencils. Remember, you won't be forced to buy the Apple Pencil Pro. Just like the other iPads, you can settle for the USB-C version if you don't want some of the fancier features. But considering the USB-C model lacks things like pressure sensitivity that even the first gen pencil has, it would be nice to offer something more feature-packed for those who want it. You can also argue it does not make sense for a non-Pro iPad to have a Pro Pencil, but then again, the iPad Air supports it. I don't think Apple cares about their naming scheme. The iPad Air is thicker than the iPad Pro. The iPad Mini has a Pro chipset. And so yeah, it's not that big of a deal. At the end of the day, we do not need a compare page for iPad pencils. Finally, I can also see them updating the colors. At the end of the day, most regular consumers only care about the colors, and so I'm hoping we see a green or orange this time around to get all the Apple sheep way too excited about design that originated from 2018, and that includes me, by the way. Now, I do want to mention that because there could be two variants, maybe the base model does not get any colors and only comes in space gray and silver, but the higher end variant with Apple Intelligence support also gets the fancy colors. Also, another change I could see is storage. I could see the base model sticking with 64 gigs because I don't see Apple upping the storage at that kind of price, but the higher end variant that's going to support Apple Intelligence, that could support 128 gigs, giving you another reason to get that instead. By the way, I completely forgot, but I do also expect the Magic Keyboard Folio to come down in price because it's currently only $100 cheaper than the actual iPad, which makes no sense to me, and so maybe that could be $149 or $199, though Gurman does give us some pretty interesting rumors that maybe Apple's developing a new keyboard that works on the base iPad and the iPad Air. It's going to lack an aluminium top case like the new Magic Keyboard for the M4 iPad Pros, but it may feature function row. Now that makes me think Apple's going to simplify the keyboard range and use the same keyboards on both the iPad and iPad Air, which would be great because it is weird the Folio for the iPad 10 has a function row, but the regular Magic Keyboard doesn't, and so considering the dimensions are so similar between these iPads, they should share the same keyboards. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching. Right, today let's delve into some renders from some Russian YouTubers who've designed this based on information they've gathered, and while it shows us a few changes we've already heard about. For example, we can see the new camera module on the back that's very reminiscent of the Pixel devices. It spans across the back of the whole device, and also you can now see there's a dual tone finish on the back of the device because we have that Apple is using part aluminium, part glass for the back of the device. Now I'm not gonna lie guys, initially I was kinda weirded out by this design, but it's growing on me, and especially in this grey it does look quite classy, and of course it'll help the iPhone stand out because we've had the same looking camera module since the iPhone 11 Pro. Now remember that weird rumour about the 17 Pro switching to aluminium? Well, as per the norm in the world of leaks, we have a new rumour that goes completely against this, and so let's dive right in. So yes, a new leak from Instant Digital goes completely against what